The rain fell heavily, almost turning off the street lights as Ji-Soo hurried to return home. Her worn waitress uniform was soaked, and the cold wind made her body shiver. The night should be like all the others. Long hours of work, little money, and constant worry about Min-ho, her 5-year-old son, who was waiting for her at home. But this time, something was different. Upon arriving at the door of the small apartment where they lived, Ji-Soo found an envelope taped to the doorknob. Surprisingly, he looked around before opening it. Inside was a black card with a simple message. You have been chosen for a unique opportunity. Call this number if you want to change your life. Suspicious, Ji-Soo entered the apartment and threw the card on the table. Min-ho was sleeping on the couch with a thin blanket. The boy was the reason for everything she did, but the exhaustion on her face showed that she didn't know how long she could continue. Collectors were calling more frequently, threatening to evict her if she didn't pay her late rent. The card seemed like a cruel joke, but despair began to speak louder. That night, as silence took over the small space, Ji-Soo took out her cell phone and dialed the number. A cold, polite voice responded almost immediately. Good evening, Ji-Soo. We were waiting for your call. Tomorrow, at 6 a.m., a car will be at your door. Come alone. She hesitated. Who were these people? How did they know your name? But before he could respond, the call ended. The next morning, Ji-Soo dressed in her best clothes, a simple blouse and worn jeans, and left Min-ho with a neighbor who offered to take care of him. When the black car arrived, promptly at 6, she got in, not knowing that this decision would change her life forever. Inside the vehicle, a man in a black suit watched her in the rearview mirror without saying a word. The journey was long and silent until they arrived at an isolated place. Ji-Soo was blindfolded and led into a building where whispered voices echoed. When the blindfold was removed, she found herself in a huge gym, surrounded by hundreds of people. Every face there looked as desperate as hers. Green uniforms with numbers printed on them were distributed, and soon Ji-Soo realized that she wasn't the only one in a critical situation. Before I could process everything, a masked man came on stage, explaining the rules. Welcome to the game. Here, one winner will walk away with $40 million. However, know that every decision could be your last. Ji-Soo swallowed. There was no way out. She was already in the game. The gym felt colder by the minute. The noise of the participants whispering filled the air, creating a muffled chaos that increased Ji-Soo's anxiety. She was surrounded by people as desperate as she was, with looks that wavered between hope and pure terror. In front of him, the masked men stood motionless, like shadowy statues. All of you, please follow instructions, announced a metallic voice that echoed through the speaker. The first game will start in 10 minutes. Ji-Soo wore the green uniform given to him, the number 456 embroidered on the chest. She looked around, trying to gauge who could be trusted. Most kept their heads down, but a man nearby caught their attention. He seemed calm, almost indifferent to the hostile environment. He had well-combed hair, clothes lined up beneath his uniform, and his gaze was so intense that it seemed to read the soul of whoever looked at it. He noticed Ji-Soo's gaze and walked over. Nervous? He asked, with a slight smile that seemed out of place in that setting. Who wouldn't be? Ji-Soo replied, looking away. I'm Hyunwoo. And you? Ji-Soo, she said hesitantly. Is this your first time here too? Hyunwoo let out a short laugh. I hope it's the only one. Before they could talk further, a huge door at the back of the gym opened, revealing an open field. It was a strange place. The artificial grass floor and painted skies on the ceiling gave the feeling of being in a bizarre playground. Standing next to a large mechanical doll, the organizers began explaining the rules of the first game. French fries 1, 2, 3. Move when the music plays. When the music stops, remain still. Any movement will be disqualified. The word disqualified echoed with frightening weight. Ji-Soo stood frozen, trying to understand what it meant to be disqualified. The starting gun was given, and the players began to advance hesitantly. The doll turned its head mechanically, its eyes scanning the field. Ji-Soo took the first step with her heart in her throat. The music stopped. Ji-Soo froze in place. A light breeze touched her face, but she was barely breathing. A player next to her lost her balance and tripped. A deafening gunshot sound echoed, and the man fell to the ground. Ji-Soo's eyes widened. It wasn't an ordinary game. They were actually killing those who failed. Panic took over. Some participants tried to run to the exit, but they were all shot down before they even reached halfway. Ji-Soo felt her legs shaking, but she knew she needed to continue. Minho's face appeared in his mind as a reminder of why he was there. If he gave up, there would be no one to take care of him. As she slowly advanced, a low voice brought her out of her thoughts. Take a deep breath. Don't think about others. Focus on the next step. It was Hyunwoo. He was beside her, speaking calmly. Ji-Soo looked at him, and for a moment the chaos around him seemed to disappear. Following his instructions, she focused only on herself and managed to reach the end of the line, together with Hyunwoo. A feeling of relief washed over her, but it was quickly replaced by shock as she looked back. The field was covered in bodies. They want to break us from the beginning, Hyunwoo muttered. Ji-Soo nodded, still in shock. Why did you help me? She asked. You look like you needed help. Plus, it's always good to have allies. Don't you think so? Before they could respond, they were led back to the gym, where the survivors were trying to assimilate what had happened. Ji-Soo sat in a corner, looking lost. Hyunwoo approached once again. It won't last long if it continues like this, he said. It's clear this isn't just a game. It's a war, and you can't fight alone. Ji-Soo knew he was right. I didn't trust him completely, but at that moment, teaming up with Hyunwoo seemed like his best chance of survival. The gym was filled with an unsettling silence, broken only by the muffled sobs of some participants who were still trying to process the massacre of the first game. Ji-Soo felt the weight of that environment like a constant pressure on her chest. Every face there represented a story of despair, and she didn't know who would be the next to fall. Hyunwoo, sitting next to her, seemed unfazed, but Ji-Soo noticed something in his gaze. He was observing everyone around him, calculating, analyzing. It bothered her, but it also made her feel safer, as if he could anticipate any threat. They're not kidding, Ji-Soo muttered, more to herself than to him. No, they're not, Hyunwoo replied with the same low tone. But if you want to get out of here alive, you're going to need more than luck. Before she could respond, a metallic voice echoed through the gym, announcing the next game. Participants were taken to a new space, a large hall decorated like a children's playground, but with a distorted and sinister air. In the center was a large rope structure, similar to a playground, with bells hanging from high points. The objective is simple, announced a masked man. Get a bell. Only those who manage to remain with a bell in hand will advance to the next round. Ji-Soo felt her heart race. There were more participants than bells. She observed the reactions around her. Some seemed confused, others aggressive, ready to fight. Hyunwoo turned to her and whispered, "Stay close to me. Trust me, at least for now." Despite his reservations, Ji-Soo nodded. When the whistle sounded, the hall erupted into chaos. Participants ran towards the rope structure, pushing and running over each other. Ji-Soo felt someone pull her shirt, trying to take her down, but Hyunwoo grabbed her arm and pulled her forward. "Climb up," he shouted, pointing to a higher point of the structure. Ji-Soo climbed up with difficulty, her hands slipping on the ropes as she heard screams and sounds of fighting around her. When he reached one of the bells, he extended his hand, but another participant arrived at the same time. He was an older man with a desperate look. "Please, I need this," he begged. Ji-Soo hesitated, but before she could make a decision, Hyunwoo appeared behind her. "Take it now." His voice was firm, but there was something in his tone that indicated understanding. Reluctantly, Ji-Soo grabbed the bell and quickly descended. She avoided looking at the man, but she felt guilt weighing down on her like a stone. When she finally reached the ground, Hyunwoo followed, holding his own bell. "You hesitated," he said, without judging her. "He seemed so desperate." Ji-Soo replied, almost whispering. "Everyone here is desperate, and that's exactly what they want to use against us." At the end of the game, the remaining survivors were brought back together. Ji-Soo noticed that the number had drastically decreased. The gym, once crowded, now seemed empty. The tension between the participants was palpable, and Ji-Soo knew that the competition was becoming increasingly brutal. That night, Ji-Soo sat in a secluded corner, trying to absorb everything that had happened. The image of the desperate man was still etched in his mind. Hyun-woo walked over, bringing a piece of dry bread that he had managed to grab before it was distributed. "Eat. You will need strength for what comes next." Ji-Soo took the bread, but hesitated. "How can you deal with this? The deaths, the choices. It seems like you already knew what to expect." Hyun-woo sighed, looking at the ground before responding. "Because I've lost everything before. When you hit rock bottom, the only thing left is to survive." He told his story, a successful businessman who trusted his best friend, only to be betrayed and lose everything he built. Hyun-woo revealed that when he entered the game, he was not just looking for the prize, but a reason to keep fighting. "But what about you?" he asked, looking directly at Ji-Soo. "Why are you here?" Ji-Soo felt a lump in her throat. Thinking about Min-ho, about the life he deserved, gave him the strength to respond. "My son, he's all I have, and I would do anything for him." Hyun-woo smiled slightly, a smile that didn't seem like superiority, but understanding. "Then let's make sure you get out of here for him." As the two shared that moment of connection, a new voice echoed through the gym, announcing the next round. This time, the games would require working in pairs, forcing alliances that could be both an advantage and a death trap. The gym lights flickered, casting unsettling shadows as the remaining participants awaited the announcement of the next game. Ji-Soo looked around, trying to calculate her chances. The previous warning had made it clear that the next round would require doubles, but did not explain how this would influence the result. Hyun-woo was by his side, quieter than usual. When the masked organizers ordered them to pair up, he turned to Ji-Soo and, with a slight nod, sealed the alliance without saying a word. The simple gesture brought a strange relief, but also a weight. Trusting someone in that environment was a risky bet. Participants were taken to a new environment, a large room with large glass roofs that let artificial light invade the space. In the center, a table was set up with rows of small colored stones. "The next game is simple," announced the metallic voice of one of the organizers. "Each pair will have 15 minutes to determine who will keep the 10 stones. The winner will advance. The loser will be eliminated." Shock ran through the group like a wave. Ji-Soo felt the weight of the revelation tighten in her chest. They had been tricked into forming alliances, only to be forced to compete against those they trusted. "That's how they play with us," Hyun-woo muttered, a trace of irony in his voice. "They bring us closer to make betrayal more painful." Ji-Soo tried to concentrate. The stones were arranged in a pattern that seemed random, but there was something calculated about the way they were positioned. The challenge was not just surviving, but deciding how to deal with the impossible choice before her. Ji-Soo and Hyun-woo sat facing each other. He watched her with an enigmatic expression, as if he had already accepted the outcome. She didn't know what to think. "Here," said Hyun-woo, pushing a stone towards her. "I want you to win." Ji-Soo widened her eyes, shocked. "What? Are you giving up? That doesn't make sense." "Yes, it does." He gave a melancholic smile. "You have more to lose. I only have my own dignity, and that's worthless in this place." She felt anger rise within her. How could he be so indifferent, so willing to sacrifice? "I won't accept it. Not like that." Ji-Soo replied, her voice shaking. "If I win, it will be on merit, not because someone decided they had nothing left to fight for." Hyun-woo leaned forward, his expression now serious. "Do you think this is a fair competition? They want to break us, Ji-Soo. What if we refuse to play by their rules? What if, for once, we choose something different?" The tension between the two was palpable. Ji-Soo wanted to hate him for his serenity, but she couldn't. She knew he was right, but the thought of losing Hyun-woo, the only person who had shown empathy in that hell, was unbearable. When the timer started to tick down the last few minutes, Ji-Soo picked up one of the stones. The silence between them was so dense that it seemed to fill the room. She faced Hyun-woo, who still maintained his calm expression. "You know you'll make it out of here, don't you?" he asked, breaking the silence. "Why Min-ho?" The mention of her son made something inside her snap. Ji-Soo took a deep breath, trying to contain the tears that threatened to fall. What if I don't want to leave here without you? The question escaped before it could be contained. Hyun-woo was surprised for a moment, but then he smiled, a sincere smile full of something she hadn't seen in that place for a long time. Hope. So, let's find a way to survive. Together. In the last few seconds, Hyun-woo made an unexpected move. He threw all the rocks onto the ground, creating deliberate chaos. The organizers, confused, took a few moments to react, and in that moment of distraction, Ji-Soo held his hand tightly. "No matter what happens, I won't forget this," she said, the tears finally falling. When the game ended, the organizers declared Ji-Soo the winner. Hyun-woo was led out of the room, but not before giving her one last look, a look that said more than words could express. Ji-Soo felt the victory like a blow. She advanced, but at what cost? The void left by Hyun-woo followed her as she walked back to the gym, where other participants looked at her with a mixture of fear and envy. That night, alone in a corner of the gym, Ji-Soo looked at the stars painted on the false ceiling. She didn't know what awaited her in the next games, but one thing was certain. Hyun-woo had planted a seed in her heart, a silent promise that her journey would not end there. The night progressed slowly and suffocatingly in the gym. Ji-Soo felt the silence way more than ever. The emptiness left by Hyun-woo was palpable, a wound that throbbed with every thought of the sacrifice he had made for her. She held one of the colored stones from the previous game, which she had kept as a silent reminder of the promise that united them to survive. While most of the participants slept or pretended to rest, Ji-Soo watched the masked men from the top of the gallery. They moved boxes and documents, setting the stage for the next game. Something burned in her, a need to understand who these people were and why they had created this brutal system. In the middle of her vigil, a soft sound of footsteps brought her out of her thoughts. It was Ji-Soo, the rebellious teenager who, until now, maintained a suspicious and distant posture. She approached slowly, holding a piece of bread she had picked up earlier. "Couldn't sleep?" asked Ji-Soo, sitting next to Ji-Soo. "No," Ji-Soo sighed. "There are many things that don't leave my head." Ji-Soo bit into the bread, watching Ji-Soo curiously. "You trusted him, didn't you?" The question was direct, without beating around the bush. "Hyun-woo?" Ji-Soo swallowed. "He was the only one here who helped me without asking for anything in return. But now he's gone, and I don't know if I'll be able to continue without that strength." Ji-Soo let out a short, almost bitter laugh. He wasn't the only one who made sacrifices. Everyone here is missing something. The difference is that not everyone has someone to come back to. Ji-Soo's words hit Ji-Soo like a blow. She thought of Min-ho, waiting for her at home, innocent and oblivious to what was happening. That was the difference. She had someone, something to keep fighting for. In the morning, participants were taken to an environment that looked like a replica of a rural village. Simple houses, fields with artificial flowers, and a stone trail that led to the center. In the middle of the field, there was a huge clock whose hands turned irregularly. "Welcome to the next challenge," announced the metallic voice. "Each participant will be placed in a circle marked on the floor. The goal is to stay within your circle until the clock stops. If someone leaves, they will be eliminated." The warning seemed too simple, but Ji-Soo knew there was nothing innocent about that game. When everyone was in position, the match began. The hands of the clock turned faster, and participants began to notice that the circles were slowly shrinking. To add to the chaos, organizers threw rocks onto the field, causing the circles to shake. Ji-Soo kept her balance as best she could, but the real challenge came when two men started pushing the other participants, trying to knock them out of the circles. Ji-Soo, who was next to Ji-Soo, was struggling to maintain her balance. When one of the men tried to push her, Ji-Soo instinctively reached out, holding her steady. "Don't let them get you down," shouted Ji-Soo, her feet steady as an anchor. The game lasted for what seemed like hours, until the clock finally stopped. The remaining survivors were few, but Ji-Soo and Ji-Soo were among them. In the end, Ji-Soo fell to the ground, exhausted, but looked at Ji-Soo with something that looked like admiration. That night, while they were recovering from the game, Ji-Soo received an unexpected visitor. One of the masked men approached her. handing her a folded piece of paper. Without saying a word, he walked away. Ji-Soo opened the paper with shaking hands. It was a handwritten message, brief but full of impact. Don't trust anyone. They're always watching. The warning looked like a trap, but something in the handwriting made her hesitate. She had seen that style of writing before. A vague memory flashed through his mind. Hyunwoo signing something in one of the calm moments between them. The message was his. Feeling her heart race, Ji-Soo began to put the pieces together. Hyunwoo was still alive. He was trying to communicate with her, maybe help her in some way. The possibility rekindled a flame of determination within her. The next morning, as the participants were led to the next game, Ji-Soo looked at the masked men with a new perspective. If Hyunwoo was alive and still fighting, she would do the same. But what did he know? And how could she use this information to change the course of that competition? As she walked, she clutched the note to her chest, a silent promise that she would find answers, and that she wouldn't give up until she discovered the truth. The tension was palpable as the few remaining survivors were led to a new location. Ji-Soo clutched the note to her chest, the words written there echoing in her mind. Don't trust anyone. They're always watching. The possibility that Hyunwoo was still alive fueled her determination, but it also left her confused. Why hadn't he tried to approach directly? What did he know that she didn't? The new space was a huge, empty hall, with cold lights illuminating the space. In the center, there was a long table with several knives and unlit candles. The masked organizers remained motionless, while the metallic voice echoed again. Welcome to the penultimate game. Each participant will receive a lit candle. The objective is simple. Keep your candle lit until the end of the stipulated time. Those who lose the flame will be eliminated. The candles were distributed, and Ji-Soo held hers with firm hands, but her mind was working at full speed. The game seemed too simple, and that left her on alert. As soon as the weather started, small fans activated, creating gusts of wind that made the task more difficult. Ji-Soo focused on protecting the flame, holding the candle close to her chest and using her body as a barrier against the wind. Other participants began to fight, trying to blow out each other's candles. Hyejin, now a reluctant ally, approached Ji-Soo. Stay with me, Hyejin said, her voice shaking. I won't survive alone. Ji-Soo hesitated. Every decision in that game was a double-edged sword, but the memory of Hyunwoo and the message in the note gave him strength. She nodded. Let's keep our candles burning together, but be careful with others. The hall turned into a battlefield. Ji-Soo and Hyejin protected each other, blocking attacks from other participants. At every moment, Ji-Soo felt the weight of Hyunwoo's sacrifice in his actions. He had risked everything so she could be here, and she couldn't fail. When the time was about to end, a burly participant attacked the two, trying to blow out their candles. Hyejin reacted quickly, pushing Ji-Soo away. The move saved Ji-Soo's flame, but Hyejin's candle was snuffed out in the process. No! Ji-Soo shouted, seeing the masked organizers approaching to remove Hyejin. The teenager looked at Ji-Soo, a mixture of fear and acceptance in her eyes. You have to win. For Minho, and for Hyunwoo. Before Ji-Soo could respond, Hyejin was taken away. Her loss hit hard, but Ji-Soo's determination only grew. The flame in her candle was more than a task. It was a symbol of everything she had promised to protect. The few remaining participants were taken to a space that looked like an open field, with a glass structure that extended across the stage. The announcement of the last game was made with calculated coldness. Each player must cross the glass bridge. Some panels are strong enough to support your weight. Others don't. Whoever reaches the other side will be the winner. Ji-Soo felt her stomach drop. This wasn't just a test of courage. It was a game of pure luck. Every wrong step meant death. The players were lined up in order, and Ji-Soo was placed last. As the others advanced, she watched intently, trying to memorize the steps that resulted in success. Hyunwoo was alive in his mind, his voice echoing. Trust yourself. They want you to give up, but you can't. When her turn came, Ji-Soo took a deep breath and took the first step. The glass creaked, but held. She continued, her mind working quickly to calculate probabilities based on what she had observed. The tension grew with each movement, until finally she reached the other side. Just when Ji-Soo thought it was all over, one of the masked organizers approached. He took off his mask, revealing himself to be Hyun-woo. The shock was so great that Ji-Soo felt her legs weaken. "Are you alive?" she whispered, unable to contain her tears. Hyun-woo nodded, his face serious. "I needed to make sure you survived. I couldn't risk losing you." He explained that, after being eliminated, he was recruited by the organizers to work within the system. But instead of accepting his new position, he used the opportunity to discreetly help Ji-Soo by sending the note and rigging the game so she would have a chance to win. As Ji-Soo processed the revelation, the metallic voice echoed again. "Congratulations, Ji-Soo. You are the winner. The prize is yours, but remember, with great wealth comes great responsibility. The game never ends." The warning made Ji-Soo uneasy. The money was a bitter victory, as it had cost so many lives, but Hyun-woo's presence at his side rekindled hope. Together, perhaps they could stand up to the system that almost destroyed them. The sound of metallic applause echoed through the empty gym as Ji-Soo stood center stage, still trying to process what had just happened. She was the winner. $40 million were hers. But the victory came at a price that seemed impossible to bear. Faces of lost allies, like hygiene, mixed with memories of moments of pure survival. And now, Hyun-woo was there, alive, but marked by the system that had manipulated them. The masked main organizer handed Ji-Soo a black card with gold details and a bank account number. It was the cold, impersonal symbol of his victory. "The money will be automatically transferred to your account. But remember, being the winner means you are part of the legacy. You can't just leave." The final sentence hit her with a weight she couldn't define. Does being a millionaire come with conditions? Ji-Soo looked at Hyun-woo, searching for answers, but he looked as lost as she did. The multitude of questions in his mind were overwhelming. After what seemed like an eternity, Ji-Soo was escorted out of the venue. A black car took her back to the city, leaving her at the door of her small apartment. When she entered, she was greeted by Min-ho, who ran to hug her. The touch of her small hands against Ji-Soo's face brought a wave of emotions that she had been suppressing throughout the game. "Amma, I knew you would come back," said the boy with the innocence of someone who had no idea what his mother had been through. Ji-Soo hugged Min-ho tightly, letting the tears finally fall. She had promised to win for him, and now she had the money to guarantee a better future. But as he looked around the empty apartment, the victory felt hollow. The weight of the lives lost and the decisions he had made hung like a constant shadow. Days later, Ji-Soo received a cryptic message, an address without explanations. She knew who it was. When he arrived at the location, a discreet coffee shop in a remote neighborhood, he found Hyun-woo sitting in a corner. He saw her enter and stood up, looking hesitant. "I thought you might not come," he said. "There was no way not to come," Ji-Soo replied, her voice firm but full of emotion. "You owe me a lot of explanations." Hyun-woo guided her to a table, and there he told her everything. How he had been purposely eliminated to be recruited by the organizers. How he had used this position to discreetly manipulate them, ensuring that Ji-Soo had a real chance at winning. It also revealed something Ji-Soo hadn't expected. The game was just one piece of a larger system, designed to entertain bored elites while destroying lives. "I can't just accept this," Ji-Soo declared. "Not after everything we've been through." Hyun-woo looked at her, his face serious, but also full of something Ji-Soo recognized. "Hope. I didn't come here to accept it. I came to fight, but I can't do this alone. I need you." Ji-Soo and Hyun-woo spent weeks planning their next steps. Her money would be the key to starting something new, an organization that could help people in situations like the one she faced. They would also investigate those responsible for the games, trying to expose the competition's dark secrets. As they worked together, the bond between them grew. Their shared trauma connected them in ways no one else could understand. Hyun-woo, once so closed and distant, showed a caring and protective side, while Ji-Soo found strength he didn't know he had. They didn't talk much about the feelings that were growing between them, but it was clear in every gesture and look. One night, As they were reviewing the documents Hyun-woo had obtained from within the organization, he paused, looking at Ji-Soo. The soft light from the lamp illuminated her face, and he realized how much she had changed since the first day he saw her. "You changed my life, Ji-Soo. I don't know if I deserve it, but I want to be by your side, no matter what happens." Ji-Soo smiled, feeling his words pierce through her emotional barriers. "You gave me hope when I needed it most. I don't think I would be here if it weren't for you." The moment was interrupted by the sound of a message arriving on Hyun-woo's phone. It was a warning. The organizers knew they were investigating. Despite the warning, Ji-Soo and Hyun-woo were determined to continue. Using her money and the information he had collected, they began to build something bigger than revenge. A future where they could fight the system that almost destroyed them. However, the fight was just beginning. As they left the cafe that evening, a black envelope was placed discreetly under the door. Inside, there was a new invitation, indicating that another round of the game was about to begin. Ji-Soo looked at Hyun-woo, his eyes full of determination. "Let's finish what we started." Hyun-woo held her hand. Together, Ji-Soo finally found what she was looking for. Safety for Min-ho, a purpose for her life, and a love that strengthened her instead of weakened her. But the battle against the system that turned them into survivors was still far from over. They knew that facing the shadows would be dangerous, but they also knew that this time, they were not alone. And so ends Ji-Soo and Hyun-woo's journey for now. A story of survival, love, and resilience. But it leaves us with one question. How far would you go to protect the ones you love and fight for a greater purpose? The system that almost destroyed them is still out there, awaiting new victims. What would you do in their place? If this story moved you, made you reflect, or awakened something inside you, don't let it die here. Comment below what you would do in Ji-Soo's place. Share this story with someone who needs to hear about strength and overcoming. And subscribe to the channel to follow more narratives that touch the soul. Every like and share is like a flame that keeps this message alive. Join us in this fight to expose the world's truths, one story at a time. The next journey is already underway, and you won't want to miss it.